Live from Bridgetown in Barbados. Hello, everyone. This is your Frontier Africa Reports live streaming the first day of this very important 3-day summit between Africa and Caribbeans. We spent the last few hours this morning, September the 1st, listening to a number of conversations and discussions and presentations around this first ever African Caribbean Trade and Investment Summit, which was put together by a number of agencies, the government of Barbados, the organizations such as Export Barbados and Invest Barbados. Of course, the CEO of Invest Barbados gave a very interesting and enlightening information speech this morning regarding what Barbados brings to the table and why it is important for Africa and the Caribbean countries to do business, trade, investment, infrastructure, in agriculture, in tourism, air and sea trade, maritime together. This is a very important 3-day conference under the auspices of the Africa Export-Import Bank, which the African Union Trade Commissioner Albert Muchanga says will be considered as a special agency of the African Union at the next major meeting of the AU in 2023. But also providing further details on how economic trade cooperation will be moving forward between the Caribbean countries, between Barbados, Guyana, and a number of other islands of the Caribbean, and why this is important under the AFCFTA. The head of Africarribean Bank, Professor Benedicto Ramos, says Africarribean Bank is considering opening an office in the Caribbean here as a desk to do business and support trade finance with the Caribbean countries, while he also says that there will be a specialized Caribbean desk that will be open at the Cairo headquarters of the Africarribean Bank to also deal with businesses, trade, investment facilities, in culture, in entertainment, in music, in every other aspect of trade between the Caribbean countries and the African continent, looking to midwife the Caribbean and the African continent together. The President of Barbados, as well as the President of Suriname and a few other government officials, spoke very extensively about why this is important. For example, the total import of fish by Africans every year is around 4.5 billion US dollars. The Caribbean countries account for just about less than 1% of that. Whereas the entire Caribbean sits in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, but they supply less fish. So Africa is importing the chunk of its fish imports from Europe and elsewhere around the world, while Caribbean countries that are blacks and Africans themselves can do much of this fish business with the rest of Africa. Then you talk about air travel, for example. It's also very huge that there are less than 2,000 kilometers between Barbados and Dakar in Senegal, but you've got to go through all the way through Britain, or you go through the United States. In New York, you can have as much as 24, 28 hours layover. So the African Export-Import Bank, Africarribean Bank, says it's looking to support airlines such as Ethiopian Airlines that will open direct routes between the Caribbean and the African continent. So this 3-day conference is bringing to the 4 years and decades and many centuries of lack of real trade and investment between Africa and the Caribbean, coming through in a number of areas, including culture, tourism. In fact, Africarribean Bank President Benedicto Ramos says there should be more intermarriages between the Caribbean and Africa. But that's just a side, by the way. But taking this conversation a whole lot further is about how to develop the Creole Street. Then you've got a whole lot of delegations here from the African continent attending this particular 3-day summit, from the Vice President of Ghana. Then you've got delegations from Nigeria, in the private sector, in the government sector, from Senegal, from Sierra Leone, from Ghana, from a number of other African countries who are part of this very 3-day conference. So looking to the intra-Africa trade, part of the new business moving forward, or relationship and cooperation with the Caribbean, would be interbank payment system, which is the PAPSS. A few hours ago, I spoke with Michael Balu, who is managing director of the PAPSS, the Pan-African Payment Settlement System, which is headquartered at the AFCFTA in Accra, Ghana, and he told me on that interview that he's going to see that there's going to be an expanded and more integrated payment system between the Caribbean countries here in the Atlantic Ocean, as well as the African continent, bringing them into the loop that has now been created Pan-African interbank payment system, try to use the currencies of these countries together rather than going through other currencies, fiat currencies, other currencies, established currencies such as the US dollar, the euro, or the British pound when trade is being done between both countries and between both sides of the Atlantic, Africa on the continent, and the Caribbean. Then, of course, there are issues around education, healthcare. Of course, there was a major cooperation in terms of the vaccines for the COVID-19 vaccine, which was done under the umbrella of the African Bank last year and in 2020 and 2021. So that opened the way really for this relationship that is now being hammered and being knocked together over the next few days here between the Caribbeans and, of course, the African continent. So there will be a whole lot of conversations in healthcare, in manufacturing, investments. Benedicto Ramo of African Bank spoke about joint venture between for export processing zones between the Caribbean countries as well as the African continent. There are issues of infrastructure to be dealt with. So the African Bank says it's putting everything it's got behind the partners in the Caribbean, in Barbados, in every other country, Suriname and others, to work together with the African continent to have what you call one continent, one destiny, and just to make sure there's one economy that rides through both sides of the Atlantic. So there's a whole lot that we're going to deal with over the next 3 days here at this particular summit. Today is the curtain raiser with getting done with the opening plenaries, but a few other meetings and side conferences and breakout sessions will discuss further details in specific areas that will be dealt with. A few deals will also be signed here between a number of organizations who've got their boots on the ground and want to do business with Barbados and other countries in the Caribbean. One of them is a Nigerian company. I will give you more details on that as we move forward. But let's just bring this very important to you. The level of trade needs to move up. The new bilateral air service agreement has to be signed between the Caribbean countries as well as Africa. The number of deals has been done. The Caribbean gets import of gas from Nigeria, from LNG from Nigeria, from Morocco, from South Africa, in terms of agro products that are also exported to the African continent. All of that needs to grow in terms of size and numbers and in terms of industrializing some of these cottage industries that need to create jobs, create wealth between and further cooperation between the Caribbean countries as well as the African continent. We're here over the next 3 days till the weekend at Frontier Africa Reports live on the ground in Bridgetown, Barbados for this year, first ever 2022 African Caribbean Trade and Investment Summit. I am Bosun Omofaye, and I'll see you next time. Briefing you live from Bridgetown, Barbados.